All right, welcome to Win the Day live stream, where we talk about how to win the day as real estate agents. Today, we're going to talk about what to say. Because as far as I'm concerned, what you say is 90% of your success. Because when you know what to say, it frees you up to listen. And when you can listen to your potential clients' wants, needs, concerns, what's important to them, all that stuff, you're the home. You already got it. You can do your job to the highest level. However, if you're spending most of your time wondering what you're going to say next, that kills the listening capabilities. I've done it, lived it, learned from it. And so we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about the value of scripts. And before we get into it, let me just put this on the table. I know a lot of reaction is, that's not my personality, or yeah, I would never say that, or any number of different things. Get over it. These scripts, at least the ones I'm aware of in real estate, and they're everywhere, have been honed over years and years and years by really crappy agents and really good ones to make them really effective. Okay. And we all start out. I mean, I know you're all super awesome agents, and I know I am, but I also know this. When I first started, I was on the super crappy end of that scale. Okay. We all start somewhere, and it's never at the top. Okay. So, but you got to get there. And what I'm going to urge you to do is learn what to say so you can listen to your clients' wants, needs, hopes, dreams, aspirations. All right. So we're going to talk about that today. Now, my intent was to have some folks reach out and tell us what they want to talk about or what they're struggling with. But we're going to simply talk about what to say right off the bat. Okay.
Hey, John, if somebody wants to jump in, and you can be the fourth head in here, if you just go over to YouTube, and this is only while we're streaming live, 8 a.m. Central, you can click the link. It will put you here, and we'll bring you on and ask your question live. We'd love to have you. Make sure your camera's on. You're decently dressed, not lying in your bed, not in your PJs. But hey, let's have some fun. Don't be afraid to jump on the camera with us, and let's have some conversations around this. It will help your business grow.
Okay. Thank you. Perfect. Right. Jump on. Let's do it. There's several aspects to this. We have lead gen. We have negotiating deals. We have conversations about commissions. There's so much. So let's pick it up here. Julie, you were saying before we jumped on here, what are some of the scripts, dialogues, conversations, whatever you want to call them, that you think are important?
Well, I think for anybody right now that is working with a buyer, the thing that I'm seeing people have the most fear over is, what do I say to get them to sign the buyer broker agreement or a showing agreement? And then the next one is, how do I protect my compensation? Because we have to negotiate our compensation with the purchase contract. And when you ask for 3%, what I'm seeing is 99% of the time that gets countered down to 2 or 2.5%. So how do you set it up, set the expectation with your buyer ahead of time that fair compensation is 3%? And how do you have that conversation with the buyer up front? And I think that's the most important time, when you're having them sign the buyer broker agreement, so that they back you up and either say, I'm going to cover the difference, or we're going to negotiate with the seller to make sure you get 3%. That's what I'm seeing a lot of people get out of the business for, because they don't know how to have that conversation about protecting their compensation as a buyer's agent.
Okay. So getting the buyer broker agreement. Destiny, have you had to deal with that?
No.
Okay.
I do exactly what Julie says. When I'm in the midst of a buyer's appointment, that's when I mention everything up front. I've had people want to negotiate my list commission, but never my buyer's commission.
Mark, you're coaching people, right? What would you say to when they, what is your go-to on that?
Yeah. So the very first thing is understand two things. One is you've got to believe that you're worth your compensation and you ask for what you're worth. The second thing is the mistake that I see is people will say, you need to sign this for me. This isn't, you've got to put yourself in the perspective of the whole law was designed as a communication and protection for the public, for the buyer, right? So that there's full transparency. So to say, look, I don't know if you know about the law changes that have come about since last year, but we are duty bound to disclose to you. And as a matter of fact, we can't even show you this until we have a conversation about what representation means for you and how I'm paid and how I'm going to go about representing your best interest. So let's go over this, what we call buyer brokerage agreement. It's a decision to hire me to help you achieve the goal that you want to achieve. And so, first of all, it's not about me, it's about them. And I think that that's an important piece to start off with. Now, I am going to back that up a little bit. I believe that buyer brokerage agreements work best at the end of a consultative review. In other words, you've taken the time to learn exactly what they're looking for. And I recognize you can't do it in every case, but then at the end, when you've communicated, this is what you're looking for, right? Yes. Do you want to hire me to find your home? Yes. Then let's discuss what it means to hire me and what you can expect in working with me. That's when you present the buyer brokerage agreement, not you've got to sign this or I won't let you in a house. That's not a lot of value.
Yeah. I have found that getting the buyer broker agreement signed is actually easy. My team and I have been doing it for about 6 years, long before it was required. And I got a lot of pushback early on when I said, this is something that, we're going to have a conversation about up front. Where I'm seeing people have a struggle, because now everybody's having to do that. I thought, well, this is great. Now we're not going to be the only ones who do that. We're not going to get people saying, no one else makes me do that. Where I'm getting the pushback is when you put your buyer compensation in the contract, and then when you get a counter on a purchase, the sellers counter it. And that's where you need to have the conversation where you come back to your buyer and say, remember when we discussed that this is fair compensation and these are the things I've done for you. And if we don't have the seller pay the 3%, are you comfortable making up the difference? That's where oftentimes the buyer will usually say yes, but if they say no, and I'm hearing a lot of people say, no, you're good with this. We're good with 2, right? We're good with 2.5. And that's where I'm hearing a lot of inexperienced buyer's agents go, okay, yeah.
Yeah. So
okay, let me do this. I'm just thinking through all this. We generally work on the listing side. We do a good number of buyer sides too. This has never been an issue. Maybe a few, I don't know. Doesn't really come up. But here's the way we approach it. Do it however you want, but here's the way we've had universal success. So first thing we do is say, before I can show you any, I'm more than happy to show you anything and everything that will meet your goal for buying. Happy to do it. It's what we do. It's my job. Going to do it. All right. However, the law, not me, not them, right? This is in your mind. It's not you. It's not the seller. It's not the brokerage, the law, Johnny Law, some nebulous thing out there. So yeah, I'm excited to show you properties that will achieve your goal for selling. I'm more than happy to do it. There's plenty of them. I'm excited. This is going to be great. Woo! Right. However, before we go, the law requires me to get you to sign this. All right. It simply says that if the seller doesn't pay me, then you will. All right. And the way it works is 99% of the time, the seller's going to pay. But if they don't, and I'll tell you up front before we even look at a property, whether the seller's paying or not. Okay. And in that rare instance, if they're not, it'll fall to you. And then you can decide if you even want to look at it or what you want to do about it at that point. It'll become a conversation between you and me, me and the seller, any number of things. Does that make sense? Yeah, I'm fine with that. Okay, good. Go ahead and sign it and let's get started. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think
it works. I mean, it just
That's
works.
exactly how I do it.
That's how I do it. What I'm saying, and since this law went into effect in August, this is where I'm seeing the problem is not then. And you have to have that compensation agreement where you say, we'll have this conversation. But what happens is when they start to negotiate.
Yeah.
And the seller
Okay. So that's next.
That's the next part. That's
okay.
where.
But
that's
first,
where
let's do first. Okay. Yeah. You have a buyer. First of all, do not do one thing. How many things? 0 things. 0, zip, zilch, none. Before you get this, don't go showing them. I wouldn't even send property. I'd love to send you property. I will email over to you. I will do, oh my gosh, I'm going to do all kinds of stuff for you, right? However, before I do, the law requires that I get this representation form. It's called a buyer broker form. And it simply states that if there's a deal done, that if the seller doesn't pay me, you will. Simple as that. 99% of the time, the seller's going to pay me. But in those rare times, it may fall to you. And I will tell you in advance. All right. Or we can do this. If you only want to see properties where the seller's going to pay me, I can work that in as well. How do you want to proceed?
I think that within that as well is a simple saying, to your point, 9 out of 10 times, the seller is going to be willing. We're going to be able to negotiate for the seller to pay that. Now, in some instances, they're not willing to pay my full 3%. That's no problem. I'm going to negotiate the most I can. And then that additional 0.5%, 1%, it's a small percentage of the deal. We'll just roll in either to the offer price or into the closing cost. Fair enough. And I've actually developed a spreadsheet. I call it the gap analysis, where you can punch it in and you can say, hey, look, over the life of this loan, it's going to be an extra, if you think about it, 1% of $1 million property is how much? It's $10,000.
Here's the thing. I'm going to push back. Yeah, you can keep going on that for sure. But it still comes back to just tell them up front what's going on, what to expect. And yes, you can say here's my problem with that, Mark. When you start going through the scenarios, where do you stop? Where do you end? And pretty soon they're like, oh shit, forget it. I'm out.
No, I think that the challenge that I found is this, working with my own clients, working with the agents that I coach, is it's the lack of having the real conversation on the front end that bites you on the butt back in the back, because you didn't discuss that with me. You know what their price range is. You put it in generalities and you say, we're going to roll this in. And most go, well, that makes sense. And to have the conversation in advance is what smooths it down the road. It's when it's a hard left turn where their head just hits the glass that it bites you in the butt.
Destiny, what do you say? You said
I do exactly what you do. I would say the only thing that I change is because you deal with people who have bought homes maybe 3-4 years ago. And the constant thing I always hear, I didn't have to do that before. And so it's saying laws have recently changed. I know that you bought a house a few years ago. Things are different now. And that softens the blow for them, because they get real defensive when you ask them to sign this document when they weren't required to do it when they recently did a transaction. Yep.
Here's the thing. I didn't have to do that before. Yeah, I know. Me either. It sucks. But it is what it is. The law requires. If it was up to me, I wouldn't have to do it. Right. But it's not up to me. It's not up to you. It's not in the seller. Seller doesn't want it either. Nobody wants it, but it's the law. Dang. All right. Right.
Yeah. And I would agree that the most important conversation is up front. So that when the seller counters, and they oftentimes do, you just come back to, remember when we talked about this, do you want to counter this, or do you want to counter other parts of the transaction? That small 0.5% is just going to roll to your closing costs.
So from my perspective, it looks like this. Yes, I can show you everything that meets your goals for investing, buying, whatever. Okay. Happy to do it. Want to do it. And that's your script, right? Yes, I can. I'll be more than happy to. All right. Before I do, not a but, not a before I do, the law, John E. Law, right? The law requires me to get a buyer broker agreement. And all this agreement says is that if the seller does not pay me, you will pay me. Now, you don't have to be a stern dope about it, but those, right? If the seller doesn't pay me, and almost always they will. And matter of fact, we can get it so only to look at only properties where the seller is paying. But if they don't, then you will pay whatever balance or the whole commission. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. And I'll lay that out before we even go see a house. Mm-hmm. Fair enough? Let's go look. I'm excited. This is gonna be great. Oh, I know, me too. Right? Mm-hmm. So, but here, so that's the way it is, right? Hey, yeah, jump on board. Yeah, absolutely. I can 100% help you find whatever you're looking for and meet your goals. I'm excited for you. This is gonna be really great. However, before we go, the law requires, and it's a new law. I know you didn't have to do it before, right? All that stuff too, right? But it's there now. And so now we have to have this buyer broker in place. And it simply states that either you or the seller, and most of the time it's the seller, 99% of the time I deal with it, it's the seller that pays my fee. But in those rare times where they don't, then it may fall onto you, or you and the seller, or you, me and the seller, whatever. We'll work that out. No big deal. But I just want you to know upfront before we start. Fair enough? Fair enough. Good. Boom.
You're
Mark
muted,
has
Mark.
no sound.
Yeah, Gary Keller put it out there yesterday. NAR statistics, 81% of buyers work with the first agent they meet with and talk with. So y'all, we're in a good position with this requirement. We should be able to negotiate better our commissions. And we also have a greater opportunity that if we're the first to the buyer, they're going to work with us. So that's solid.
Let me add this to it. If you're presenting this type of information in a hesitant, I hate to even say this. Oh shit.
Yeah.
No, don't do it. This is just a matter of, how are you? I'm doing great. Oh, hey, the buyer broker thing is what it is, right? That has to be the mentality.
It's the first mindset is I'm worth it.
Way to go.
Yep. I'm worth it.
Right.
Yep.
Here's the other thing, though. I want to even go back further because I run into this with our people. A lead. Hey man, I'm interested. Can you send me information on X, Y, and Z house? Right. The first thing we do is just drop everything we're doing, leave the kid up in the store or whatever. And we run out to our computer. Oh my God, I got somebody. Right. No. Yeah, happy to do, right? You got to slow down. I'm happy to send you. Do not send. Are you guys in agreement with this? Do not send. Do not jump. Julie, you in agreement on that?
Total agreement.
Right.
And I know it's hard, especially if you haven't met the person. You're driving down the road and someone calls on a listing and says, hey, I'd like to see your listing. Now that's a little bit different because it's your listing.
It's your listing, different.
You don't need a buyer broker agreement, but it's hard to ask questions and ask them, what the situation is. That's a different conversation.
But are you in agreement? You do not let me email over the listing to, or not the
buyer broker agreement.
You're on the buyer side. Let me send you all the houses in that neighborhood. We'll buy one of them. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Do not do that. Am I nuts here on this?
I agree with you. You should not do that. You should say, hey, let's sit down and have a consultation first.
Mark, what's your thought?
Yeah, we move to the consultation. I will say, hey, I will gladly show you this one property. If this isn't it, I have a process that helps buyers get where they're going. There's times when...
What if they're not here? Could just send me the email.
No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not Google.
Okay. What's your position, Destiny?
I feel the same way. I think it shows your value. I think it shows your professionalism and in your standards when you say, hey, we need to sit down and talk. Sounds like we need to have a deeper conversation. Okay.
So when somebody says, hey, I saw this listing on Facebook or on, I don't know, where do people search? On realtor.com or somewhere, wherever, right? Can you just send me the information on this? What is the conversation? What does that sound like for y'all? Because that happens, right? This is
Yeah,
the
that
thing
does
that
happen.
happens, right?
And the reality is all the information is out there. People can get it. So it's not like we are the keeper, the guard at the gate. That information is on all the consumer websites.
Right.
It's just having that conversation of, I'd like to sit down and have a consultation. And it doesn't have to be come into my office. That's what it used to be. It can be, let's have a Zoom conversation.
Yeah.
You can have a consultation, live, or, just like anyone who's selling you something, who's serious about selling it, they'll say, let's set up an appointment, and you have a Zoom conversation, and they're talking to you from somewhere else in the country. Just, you have a conversation so that you can tell them, this is my role, this is your role, and this is
what is that conversation though? What is just, hey, I saw this listing, can you send me the information?
So John, this is what it would sound like. Hey, I don't have it right in front of me, but what about that property has you interested in it?
Mm-hmm.
All right,
Okay.
that's where I'm going to go first. It's on me, and this is why scripts. It's on me to bring them to that place. And as I'm getting to where I can get some of that information, let me ask you something. Is it this property in particular, or are you looking for something in general? So I'm going to go, if I can expand, no, it's this property and only this property. That's the only property that I'm interested in. That's a different conversation. Well, no, we're looking at say, you know what? Here's what I know is the most effective way to make sure you get the best property is that we take a few minutes up front to really discover what you're looking for, because this may not be the best property for you.
Okay.
My job is to help you find the best property that matches, not just a property. That's fair, right?
Love it. Destiny, what are you saying?
I was going to say exactly what he said. I would say, tell me what about this property really interests you and what has you looking at properties, and allow them to open up and tell me where they're really at. Are they just window shopping? Do they just want to see houses, or are they actually in the position to write an offer?
Cool. Like it. All right.
And
so
I think you got to look at people and say, regardless if it's just a random person who's calling you on the phone or whether it's a referral. So, let's say someone's been referred to you. I never just, jump into it. I start with, when's a good time for a phone call? When's a good time for a Zoom consultation? Because I want to find out, why you're moving, when you need to be in your new property, some of those things. And if I find those things up front, I'm going to be better able to assist you in meeting all of your goals, not just, if you're looking at one particular property for something that I know is not going to meet some of the other criteria, we'll discuss it, and then you can decide whether you want to look at that. But to make our time valuable, most valuable, I'd like to show you more than one property at once. And so if I can find out what the most important criteria is, I can make that time useful, and we can see more than one at that time. When's the best time for a phone call? When's the best time? If you're on a phone call or if it's a text, when's the best time to have a Zoom meeting or to have a conversation? Because I think some of these, I want to go see this right now, are, maybe if you're driving down the road, let me get to a point where I can stop. But when's the best time, I think, for a Zoom meeting, so that I can really get to understand what it is that you're trying to do.
Like it. So I'm just thinking through, our business is a little different. They're mostly absentee owners. They don't even live here, right? These are just internet things or whatever. It's a little bit different for me, but generally what we do, send me information on this, or I'm looking for a deal, or, whatever the case may be. Again, first thing you want to do in everything, guys, just so we're clear, is jump on board. Yeah, I got you. I can help you with this. You're at the right place, right? Happy to do it. It's what I do, right? You're looking at this property, MLS or whatever the address is, whatever. Cool. I like that house. Whether you do or not, who knows, right? I like that house, right? Hey, and I'll be more than happy to send that over to you. A couple things though. Tell me about when you're buying, why you're buying, what about that house? This kind of goes into it, right? So if you're on the phone, right? Even if you're texting or typing, email, right? Yes. I'd be more than happy to send that over. Before I do, a couple things. One, I'm going to have to send you a buyer broker. The law requires this, and it simply says that if the seller doesn't pay me, you're going to pay me. And if there's some margin in the middle, we'll negotiate it out. Happy to do it. It's no big deal. I got to get that right. I can't do it. Two, you're interested in this house. Is it only this house? Kind of like what you're saying. Or are you looking for houses like this? All right. Three, when can we meet? When can we talk? Right. And that might be a text or a phone or whatever, and go from there. Ask questions. Ask questions. I'll show you everything. It's going to be great. What's your email? I'll send you everything. It's going to be great. No. What's your email? Question, right? Are you interested in only this house? Or are you interested in others? Question. What is your time frame? Question, right? Are you buying it as an investment, or is this where you're going to live here? Do you live here now? Where do you live? Right?
Yeah,
All
that's
these
an important
questions.
one. You got to get their primary reason for buying. If it's a primary residence or if it's an investment, and what are their parameters? And that's what you got to treat everyone, whether it's an internet lead or a call from an open house, from a sign or whatever. You got to treat them all as a consultation, someone who's been referred to you, where you have the full conversation of why are you moving, when are you moving, and what's your criteria. You got to have all of that.
Right.
And a good little phrase to start it off is the two words, just curious. And just curious. What's got you looking? Those two little words are magical because they drop down guard. Just curious. What's got you looking? Just curious. Where would you go if you were to sell? Just curious. That will disarm so many people, and it just moves into a great exploratory conversation.
You know, it's interesting. I have agents on our team that have been here 10 years plus. And I have agents that have been here 10 months less. The younger ones have absolutely no trouble getting a buyer broker signed. Zero trouble.
Yeah.
The older ones are struggling. And I think it's new dog, old dog, new tricks, or whatever the saying is. What's that, Julie?
Well, and I've gotten most of the calls from long-time agents who are just freaking out over the buyer brokerage agreement. Versus,
it's a comfort thing, I think.
It's a comfort thing. You used to just do it because you didn't. I think a lot skated by saying, "Oh, you don't pay for my services." Wrong. And you've got to now value your services.
Hey, let's be honest. What a great way to screen out looky-loos.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Completely.
Right? But when you're hungry, you haven't had a commission check in a minute. Yeah, sure. You want me to dance? Put on some music. Let's do it. Right? Be careful of that. Treat yourself like a pro, and they'll treat you like a pro. Okay. Yeah. And a pro slows it down. Love it. You're interested? I'll show this. Happy to. I'm really excited to. It looks like a great property. Couple things though, before we start. I'm going to need.
I totally agree with you when you said, the older agents are the one that struggle. The reason why the younger agents or the less experienced agents don't struggle is because they don't know what they don't know. And it's kind of like when you go to Disney and you're standing in line for 45 minutes for a ride versus going to some place where you're expecting to, get in 5-10 minutes. They set the expectation. This is how we do it. It's kind of like, when I have people coming into an open house, I set the expectation. This is how I do it. Nobody comes in without giving me a phone number, and everybody obliges. So when you set the expectation up front, this is how we do it. People will go along with, okay. And that's why people who are new to the business have no problem using a script, know that one way or another, I've got to master my script because I've got to get this signed prior to showing property.
Okay, I'm gonna give you guys an example of something. The buyer broker thing is how old? A year? Not even?
August.
Right?
August 17th, it went into effect nationally. Required. August 17th.
So I have been selling real estate for over 20 years. And only 10 months of those or whatever have buyer brokers been around, right? And I mostly deal with the listing side of things. And so just listening to this conversation, you can tell that this is not in my wheelhouse, right? You need to have it in your wheelhouse. But I can tell you this. If I talk to somebody, if they were thinking about buying or selling, I would drop into, hi, my name's John Moran. I'm with Keller Williams Realty's at the Beach Team in Destin. How are you? Great. Yeah, awesome to hear. Hey, quick question for you. Did you see the house down the street just sold? It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and at 1,800 square feet. Yeah, that one. Yeah, it sold for $700,000. Yeah, right. Well, here's the thing. I know when one sells, a couple more getting ready to come on the market. I was just curious, when do you plan on moving? Oh, interesting. How long have you lived in that house? Oh, nice. Cool. How'd you happen to pick that house anyway? Ooh, okay. So here, curious, if you were to sell, where would you go next? Oh, okay. Good. When would that be? Nice. All right. I'm with you. All right. You see a difference? I mean, I can roll that bad boy out. That you want to go fast? I can talk really fast. All right. Yeah, man. How long you had that place? I can mirror and I can do it all because it's practiced.
Yeah.
It's redundant. It's in there. Buyer broker thing. I can get through it, but it's not the same thing. Right. The just listed, that's like, satisfaction of Mick Jagger for me. I can knock that thing out.
Well, and that's where I'm saying, here in Arizona, we went into effect with the new buyer broker agreement being requirement at August 1st. Nationally was 8/17. And so I manage an office. This is my 29th year in real estate. And in my office are just under 900 agents. And so what we're seeing now is people dropping out because they don't know how to defend their position when it comes to the second part. If you haven't set the expectation up front with the buyer broker agreement saying you're going to make up the difference and this is the value that I bring and this is our relationship, then when you get to the negotiation and the seller is countering your compensation, they're falling apart because they cannot defend. I've had it where the listing agent has countered it to 0. And depending on, is this a first-time home buyer and they're getting a loan and they already need the 3% for their contribution to be able to buy, they can't come up with 6%.
Work the deal. Work the problem.
This is where I'm seeing people fall apart, is in the negotiation where the seller counters their compensation. And even though they have the signed buyer broker agreement, now you have to push back and you have to say to the buyer, well, if we can't get 6% because they already needed 3%, they can't buy this house because they can't finance it. Depending on what type of loan they're getting, there are caps. And that's where I'm seeing people fall apart.
Awesome. So Jesse says, buyers are coming to you to find out what's next. Absolutely. How much will this cost? Be the expert they are expecting you to be. So here's another thing I've discovered in my years. The more in control, well, that might be a bad phrase. The more confident, professional, good that you are, the fewer questions, the fewer objections, all that stuff. They believe that you know what you're doing and they're along for the ride.
And they trust you.
So be the expert. I tell my people all the time, be professional. Well, how do I do it? First of all, be professional. Start there. Look the role, sound the role, be professional.
Have a process. And when they see that you have a process and this is how we do it, and that's the phrase I like to use. Think of Disney. This is how we do it. And when you know this is how we do it, and you set that expectation at the front end, and then you keep reminding them this is how we do it, they're on board with it.
Practice.
Mark, what are you going to say?
Practice until you're confident. And I'm old enough to remember, and a few of you may be old enough to remember the FedEx commercial where they're sitting around the boardroom. Somebody says something, everybody ignores. Another person says the same thing, and everybody goes, "Oh man!" They said, "Well, I said the same thing." He said, "But you didn't do this." So, I mean, practice your scripts until you come across confident, because a big part of it is if you're hesitant in communicating your value and what you charge, they're going to say something's gamey here. If you're confident, they're going to say, "Oh, okay, he's worth it. She's worth it." So practice it until you're confident and roll with that. This is where script practicing comes in, and we underestimate its value.
I'm gonna give you another tip. Jesse's got it right here. Thank you, Jesse. Yes, a buyer consultation. I have a list of questions. I refer to my buyer question qualifying form, right? Discuss. When I first started, I would bring the script, sit down, put all my stuff down, and this is my script, right? I would say, hey, this is a big deal for me, and I'm sure it is for you. So I brought my script right here. These are important questions. It says right here, important questions that I need to ask. 1, if you were to sell, where would you go next? Right? It's a form, like Jesse says, it's a form. Just bring your damn script in a format and you go right down it, right? Put it on a clipboard if you really want to be a professional. All right. Number 1, if you were to sell, where would you move next? Number 2, and away you go. If you need that, go for it.
And look, I've used that many times. And the way I frame it is this. My father was a pilot. He was a captain of 747s, and he never flew anywhere without a checklist. I brought my checklist because getting to where you're wanting to go is important, and we're not going to have a crash along the way. So I'm not going to miss anything. I don't want to miss anything. So frame it in terms of, it comes back to why it's important.
Put your logo at the top of the thing. Now it's a form. You're a professional. Okay. Okay. Let's start to wrap this up. Where do you find these scripts? I get asked, oh, dude, Phil Jones. It's like Phil Jones invented scripts like a year ago. These scripts have been around a long time. Now, Phil Jones is a place to go, right? I think he put
what to say in real estate. Yeah.
He put all the scripts into a book and put a cover and a back on it. I don't know. I shouldn't say that. I didn't read it. So whatever. But yeah, go there. Bold, if you're in K-Dubs, has it. Mike Ferry has it. I know Buffini has it. I think if you Google real estate scripts, or if you go on YouTube, real estate scripts, Mike Ferry's got them out there.
You can even chat GPT in the voice of so-and-so, give me these scripts.
I'll say this book is a great book, Ninja Selling. It's got buyer questionnaires, seller questionnaires for you to take on the appointment with you. You can download them and print them out. I use them in every appointment. So get this book. It walks you through every step.
Do we miss something, Julie? Where do you get the script?
No, it's funny because I had myself on mute and I said Ninja, and then Destiny held up the book. Ninja Selling by Larry Kendall.
Excellent.
They go way more in depth than a lot of others, and they're practiced scripts. And
let me ask you guys this: where don't you get the scripts?
From
How about the person in the mirror, right? Don't wing it. Don't wing it.
Agreed.
Right? You're comfortable with you, but unless you're making, 10 million a year selling real estate, the you're comfortable with ain't the one you should be relying on. Rely on the ones that make a lot of money doing what you're doing. All right. And sound like them. Right? You sound like you at home in the shower.
Practice until you can't miss.
Yep.
Don't practice until you get it. Practice until you can't miss.
Yep.
I was talking to Harrison the other day, and he was sharing with me his listing script. And in that listing script, it's like, oh, that's good. And, he takes 100 deals a year personally. And then he points me to where he got it, which was Ben Kinney, who does 1,000 deals. It's like, okay, it's imitating excellence. Okay.
And I can guarantee you, Ben Kinney got those from either Bold or Mike Ferry, who got them from probably Zig Ziglar. They go back, they're honed. I say this all the time to my people. They're honed. I remember my coach, every time I would struggle, are you following the script? Yeah. Really? Let's go through it. And you know how you sing a song and you don't know the words, but you're belting out whatever the hell's in your head? Mm-hmm. And somebody looks at you, go, really? I can't think. I mean, we can all think of those songs. I've seen them on TikTok. These are the words. You're like, oh, that's not what I'm singing. And dude looks like a lady, that Aerosmith, right? Dude looks like a lady, right? I swear to God, this guy said, dude looks like Greg Brady. I mean, he would sing that out. What? What do you mean, what?
But he was
like Greg Brady.
He was confident.
Yeah. He owned it. There's no doubt about it. So, all right. Anyway, my point is, the dude looks like a lady. Make sure you're doing it right. Okay.
Yeah. Look, unfortunately, nobody was brave enough to jump on the stream with us. They want to just watch. All right, we got the message. You don't want to be one of the talking heads here. We'll try it again at another point. But here's the big thing is find the scripts, get the scripts, engage the scripts, practice the scripts, right?
Mhm.
That's what's going to make the difference.
Mike Ferry, Phil Jones, Bold, Buffini, Craig Proctor, Ninja. There are a lot of sources, people here. So yeah, in here, let me just tell you this. If you have a specific thing you're bumping into, shoot a message or something. I'll be more than happy to address it. Also, practice the written form of this because it's going to be shorter than the longer yapping one that you use. You got to be able to text or email because a lot of people won't have a conversation. So you're going to have to learn how to ask questions rapid fire via text.
Yeah.
Different skill. All right. So let's end it there. We're 41 minutes into this. I think that was a good, robust conversation. Hope you got something out of it. Let's go to work. Let's try it. See you later. Bye-bye.
Awesome.
Hi, guys.
Bye-bye.